Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reclaimed Ranch. So today I have something a little bit different. A friend of mine had this gorgeous, really old hand-carved wooden table that I bought, and then she saw these chairs and thought that would go perfect with this table that I have. And so she gave these 4 chairs to me, which was just so super sweet. And we decided it would be a good idea to go ahead and decoupage on the back of it and then just reupholster the base. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm just going to unscrew. It's just held on by 4 screws. Unscrew each of them. And by no means am I any kind of sewer or upholsterer or anything, but these are typically pretty easy to do as long as you have the right equipment. So I'm going to be using it's an electric stapler, which makes this go so easy. And I got this fabric at a thrift store. I believe it's a big chunk, and I believe it was like $5.99 for all of this fabric. So I was able to do all 4 of the seating pads with that. And instead of taking everything off the chair, there was only one piece of fabric on there already. So I'm just going to go over the top of it. It wasn't in super bad condition. There was no rips or tears or anything. So we're just going to go right over the top. And I am going to kind of work side to side. So I'm going to start like, if you were to start on the north side, the next one you'd want to do would be the south side. You don't want to go like around clockwise. That just helps make it nice and taut if you keep it even on each side. So just cutting out the fabric here, and I just cut, I think it was probably a good 3 inches on each side, longer than the pillow itself for the seating. That's going to give me enough fabric to work with to be able to pull it back, staple it, and then I can cut away the excess. So this fabric is very neutral, and it's going to pair really well with the designs that I have chosen for the backs of the chairs. And unfortunately, I only had 3 designs that I had found that would fit perfectly. And they're going to go really well with the fridge that I decoupaged, my horse fridge. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but I will link a video at the very end of this one if you want to watch that. It's got a beautiful black stallion on it. And so I've picked 3 different horses, and they're all from the whimsical decoupage papers, which my friend Debbie Frimmer sells on her website as well as in her store. So if you're interested in these, you can go to elsielaneboutique.com and you can go ahead and order those from her. So as you can see, I'm just using my stapler to kind of pull and go straight down that line. Now we're going to go to the other side, and I'm going to just pull it nice and taut, staple it down, just a few, and then when I am all done, I go back and make sure to have it completely stapled down. But when I got to the corners, I was trying to figure out, how do I want to do this? So I basically just pinched up the corners, cut a little bit of that excess off, and then pulled it nice and tight. And you'll see here, I'm going to pinch it together, staple it really close on each side. So I'll have this little triangle sticking up. And then I'm going to remove the excess from the sides and then just push that triangle down, staple it down, and make sure it's nice and tight. And that way I'll have a nice, good corner. So now that I've done the north and south, we're going to go east and west. I'm going to go ahead and just pull as I continue to go across, make sure it's nice and tight so I don't have any wrinkles on the other side. And then once I get to that corner, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to remove the excess, make that little triangle, and then just pull it nice and tight and staple it down. So I'm going to just repeat this step every corner. And when I come to this last one, I don't know if I did it on this one, but I flipped it over just to make sure it looked okay. A lot of times if you pull it too tight, since these have lines in them with the arrows, you don't want the lines to be like wavy. So you want to make sure that it's nice and tight, but not so tight that it's going to distort the pattern, if that makes sense. So I do just kind of, before I do the final one, I flip it over and double check to make sure that everything looks good. Okay, so now for the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and use my mister. Whenever you paint fabric, you want to make sure it's got a wet base to it. That way the paint can work a lot easier and get down inside. It does take a while. So for some reason, I thought I would do this the hard way, but I figured it out finally in a little bit and work smarter, not harder. I'm going to be using my Fusions mineral paint in the color Cashmere. And I keep kind of misting it just so that it can spread out a little bit. But here I'm taking a baby wipe because I'm getting it all over the wood, which I don't want to do. And so eventually I finally figure out, oh, there's little tabs on the back that I can take off and unscrew these backings from the chairs. So that makes it a lot easier. But until then, we're going to continue to use a baby wipe and wipe off the paint before it cures. And then what I end up doing is I end up putting 2 coats of this color. I mean, you can use any color base as long as it's pretty light. And the horses that I have picked out are like more of a creamy color in the background, so I wanted to stay in that family. And as long as you have a lighter background, those images will pop nicely. So we're gonna just continue and hopefully I'll figure it out soon. But I don't want to have to do this on every chair, even though there's only 4. It takes a lot of time, and that's why I only got 3 of these done. Plus, I haven't found another horse paper that I am in love with yet. I could do the Black Stallion that's on my fridge again, but I kind of want to do different ones so that they're all different but kind of look the same. So Whimsical only had 3 of these gorgeous white horses, and so I'm kind of on the hunt to find one more. I did buy one, but I'm not sure that I'm going to use it because it's not quite the same. It's got more of like a steampunk look to it a little bit, and I want it to kind of all flow. So here I figured it out. Let's take these off. So these screws are kind of interesting. They had holes in them to put the tabs in, which I've never seen before. So that was kind of interesting to me, but I love how intricate that floral pattern is on the front that they carved out. It's just so pretty. And I am not changing the wood at all. I love how old and vintagey it looks. I love the color of it. I think it's just perfect, especially with the table. I wish I could show you a picture of the table, but the table is really like got that old vintage look with the black scars on the top of the table from a cup being too warm or something sitting there. And I love it that way. I'm not going to redo it. I'm into antiques, and so that for me was just awesome. And so here I figured out, okay, let's take this off and get to painting. So I did let it soak in and dried with my heat gun. However, you don't have to. You can let it dry naturally. It just takes a little bit longer. And then once it was dry, I went in with I believe it was like a 220 sandpaper, and then just went over the top of the entire thing, both directions, just to, because it is pretty hard once the fusion dries. And so I want that fabric to be soft with that paper going over the top. So I did make sure to sand it down in between each coat. So here's where I'm going to go ahead and go in with that sandpaper and just lightly rub, make sure all of the really hard pieces on top come off. And I use my hand to just kind of guide where I need to redo certain patches and where it seems to be okay. So, and then I did make sure to also go around the edge because I am going to wrap that decoupage paper around the edge to the back. So once that feels good, then I will go ahead and go in with that second coat. And this one, of course, goes on a lot easier because I've already got that base down inside the fabric. So this is going to be more sitting on top, which ends up going a lot faster. Okay, so now we're on to the part where we're going to decoupage this gorgeous horse on. And this one is called Moonstone Beauty from Whimsical Designs. And so I just want to cut down just an area large enough to fit that padding in the back. So I have that whole bottom piece that I can save for, like, if I do like a mixed media piece, I can use those pieces for the background or something. So I always want to hang on to the extras. And so this I had to take my time with because I'm used to using rice decoupage paper, which is way more forgiving than like the 18-pound decoupage paper, tissue paper. So I didn't want to mess this up. So I just kind of took my time, and here I figured out, oh, I need to have it go in the right direction. Otherwise it's going to be upside down. Always want to check that first. And then once I get it cut down, I'm going to be using my Fusions decoupage gel to put this on. And I also have my mister bottle to mist the paper, because that's going to make the fibers open up a little bit, make it a little bit more flexible since we're working with kind of a rougher surface than say wood or something different. So we're going to just use the technique of the starter strip, and I'm going to go ahead and fold that back. Going to go get my decoupage transfer gel, and then going to be, I want to make sure I have enough. So typically you want just a nice like thin layer, but with it being so rough from the paint and the fabric, it's not a very flat fabric, let's say. So I want to make sure it gets down into the crevices as well as a little bit of a coat on top. So it's got to kind of be a little bit thicker than normal. And then once I get a starter strip, I'm going to go ahead and mist the paper. Apparently I didn't mist it here. But typically I would mist it. Here we go. Okay, now I figured it out. And then I'm just going to pat it down, but I also get some saran wrap. It's nice to have saran wrap on hand. It's a little bit more gentle than pulling with your fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of saran wrap, and then we can kind of blot it and mold it a little bit better. So I want to just make sure it's going around the edges. Now, if you're having a hard time, if you have a curvy surface like this, you can cut the paper in little spots where it feels tight and it's not going to go around, which I didn't do here, but I did do on the others, and it made it a lot easier to mold that paper around to the back with there's so many curves being in there. So just a tip on that. And then it kind of does pull apart a little bit. You might have a little bit of an area where you can see underneath, and then just take some paint and kind of blend it in, and nobody will ever know. Or just another piece of decoupage paper from the extras that you have. So we're going to continue to work our way down, mist as we go, use the saran wrap. And then this is where I'm starting to cut because it was getting a little tight, these little pieces here. And then it helps to be able to get it around the back. So we're going to work all the way down to the bottom. And then once that's done, I am going to put a coat over the top like this right here to help seal it and keep it down. And that also helps to get the last of the air bubbles out. And I tell you what, the misting really does help get those air bubbles out as well. It just, for some reason, it seems to be able to flatten it out a lot easier. Before I used this misting technique, and I think Royce was the one that I learned it from. I had so many problems with wrinkles and bubbles and all kinds of stuff. So there's different ways. You can also use a little iron if you have some wrinkles and bubbles, and that helps to get it out. Or a lot of times I use my heat gun as well. So just some different tips and tricks there. And so I'm going to continue to just take my time, mold it around, and then once it's completely dry, I'm going to go ahead and just flip the back over, take off that excess paper with just some scissors. I don't use my little finger sander like I normally would, just because some of this side and top and bottom parts do show. So I want to make sure that it's completely covered. And if I were to use a finger sander, it would probably take it off. And then I waited for 24 hours, let it completely dry, and I ended up using my Fusion's Tough Coat Matte Sealer top coat. And I put 2 coats of that on just because people are going to be putting their backs against it, probably rubbing around. I want to make sure it's going to completely stay sealed and on there without any problems. And of course I'm going matte because that's what I like. Just look at how gorgeous this is. I am obsessed with these. I am so overjoyed that she gave these chairs to me, and we both, thought of this idea of how to put decoupage on there, and she's like, do the horses to match your fridge. So I think that was just a spectacular idea, and I am absolutely in love. So let me know what you guys think. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will link that refrigerator video above, and we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.